In this video we're reviewing a new position inquiry builder available in version 7.7 of ProSoft and above, and we're looking at in today's video at the ability of the inquiry to do mark-to-market calculations. That is the ability for it to look at sales and purchases, look at the contract price, add on extra costs that are going to be incurred as part of receiving or shipping that contract, bringing that to a delivered price, and then comparing that open position to a current market value to see whether you're in the money or out of the money on a particular contract. Using the grouping and sorting and filtering options within the new position inquiry, we can then analyze that information in various ways. So I'm looking at a report called Test 11 that I've set up in my system. If I go into the actual maintenance of that report and have a look at how I've set that up, I have a report name which is just m2m. I'm converting everything into metric tons, and I've got my report currency set to home. I've also got checked that I want to convert contracts at the contract rate where set, and so what that will mean is that if I've hedged any particular contracts, it's going to convert those into my local currency at the rate that I've put into the actual contract. I've got checked that I want to bring in purchase contracts and sales contracts, and also that I want to perform the mark-to-market calculation, and that I want to use 01999 for my market price and freight calculations. Now when I go into the actual inquiry and select my report ID and click on my Get Report, my information comes in this layout. I've grouped this inquiry in a particular way that makes sense to me. In this case I've got it grouped by market zone, and then by master product, and then by line type. Now when I click on Get Report, the information builds straight away, and you can see because I've got it grouped as by market zone, I end up with two sets of market zones for my particular position inquiry. It's these zones called Geelong and Newcastle, and these are represented back on the actual contracts when I originally wrote them out. If I click on the plus button next to market zone, I can then see my groups of different master products. So here we have one for wheat. If I click on the plus, I then get to see groupings against my different line types, and so my line types represents either a purchase or a sale. If I then click against my line type of P, I can see all my purchase contracts grouped together. I've got this sorted by contract number, so I see my oldest contracts up the top and my newest ones down the bottom. And then I've got my columns laid out in a fashion that I want for this inquiry. So you can see here that I've got my original contract quantity in this first column. I've then got my contract date, the product number or my master product on that actual contract, as well as a couple of quantity columns that show me how much I've actually shipped and how much I've got unshipped. I've then got the flat price zone that this contract is tied to, and so that's going to be important in determining if there's any basis between where the contract is actually priced and where I want to actually bring it to in terms of market. And then I've got some pricing columns across here. So I start off with my contract price, so this is the price that's actually on the contract itself. I've then got these other columns that represent extra costs that are associated with the contract. So in the case of my purchase contract, I've just got a little bit of freight or basis allocated to these. This has been picked up in the system by looking at my flat price market zone of location 1 and my market zone of Geelong, and finding a value to assign against that relationship for any contracts with those values against them. If I have a look at my sales side, I have a similar situation. I have a contract price here of $350. I have an estimated freight of $5, and on this top one also I've got some other costs totaling to $10. We then see that we've calculated the delivered price against each contract based on those variables, and we've also established a market price against each contract. Now the market price is established by looking at the market zone that the contract is in and the product, and going back and looking up a table where we store all of those market prices. The system's then able to compare this market price to our delivered price, and therefore establish the mark to market. It does that by comparing the two and then multiplying that by the unshipped quantity against the contract. That gives us an overall value, and by sorting, filtering and grouping those values in different ways, we can get a sense of where our position is up to and where we're exposed in any particular way, whether that be by market zone, whether it be by product, whether it be by customer. We can also see here that I've got different products within my purchase contracts. I've got an APW1 product, and I've got a separate market price against that one, against my ASW1 product, and that's because I've got a grade spread set up. Now, because we're looking at a live situation, it means that any data that changes in the background, whether somebody's shipping product or adding a new contract, or even if we update our market prices, as soon as we do a new get report, that information will build up again. So here we have the screen where we maintain our market prices, and I can see that in Geelong my product APW1 is currently at $2.75. I could come in here and type in my new price. And when I come into my mark to market and click on my get report, when I click on get report and expand out my options again, you can see that my market price is updated, and thus my figures have also been updated.